Hello and welcome, Accounting Alchemy Network, and thank you so much for joining us for this really cool social forum conversation that I'm stoked about, because today we are talking about culture KPIs. And as we like to do in the Accounting Alchemy Network, we're going to start this meeting off with just a moment of grounding. Hey, look, Donnie Shimoto is masquerading as Matthew Hegum. So we're going to just start with a moment to arrive in this place and time together. If everyone wants to take a moment to just close your eyes or lower your gaze, whatever feels good to you in this moment, and take some nice deep breaths in through your nose. Sending breath to any area of the body that has any stress or tension that can be released. And just allowing any stress, tension, anxiety, worry to just ground out through our seat, through our feet on the floor, maybe even pushing our feet into the floor a little bit more. Taking some more nice deep breaths. Taking a moment to feel gratitude for the air we get to breathe, for the spark of fire within us, for the waters in and all around us, for the earth beneath us. Nice deep breaths, just arriving in this present moment, in this place and time, releasing anything we might have been working on before this, and taking a moment to feel into the earth, into the ecosystems all around us, and how we are part of those ecosystems. We are part of this amazing dance of life all around us. And when we take a moment to just be present and acknowledge that we are part of the life all around us, we acknowledge that we don't have to do anything to belong. And just allowing ourselves to be for a moment, that we are human beings, not human doings. And at the same time, the things that we do choose to do have great impact in the world around us. So taking a moment to acknowledge the peoples who stewarded the ecosystems of which we are now part for millennia. Before white settlers came to these lands, if you are sitting in the United States right now or in North America, and acknowledge the ongoing struggles for sovereignty and equity in our world, and that we can do great things to heal the injustices of the past. And then in order to do that, we first need to acknowledge them. And that is a big part of the culture that we are working with right now. And that we get to do this amazing work in the world. That this is an opportunity that we have to create something better, something more powerful that is intrinsically connected to all life, as well as to the work that we do on a daily basis. Allow that gratitude for this great work that we get to do to fill our hearts, fill our bodies, fill the space around us. As we take a moment to move our bodies in whatever way feels good to us in this moment, maybe a stretch or a neck roll, as we come back together in this place and time in this meeting for this fantastic conversation around culture in our workplaces and what we can do to be measuring culture in our workplaces. So this conversation was inspired from multiple angles. This is basically by popular demand. We're having a great conversation with Alexis and Jana around culture in workplaces through the Game Changer Intensive group, and then also Amazing Humans Alert, Matthew posted in the chat. This is a rockstar group. It totally is. And also having fantastic conversation with Donnie Shimoto around culture KPIs and how can we as accounting professionals measure the culture so that we can make more effective decisions around the culture. What data can we collect to be making these decisions? And Mayumi couldn't be here with us today. Mayumi's been leading a monthly conversation around creating humane workspaces within the Accounting Alchemy Network. And I'm really grateful Matthew has pulled up the spreadsheet that we've been building through those conversations. So we've got all kinds of great things to dive into. But before we get into that conversation, I would love it if we could do a very brief brief round of introductions, because we do have a rockstar group and I know not everyone here knows each other. So if we can super quickly just name wherever you are located, pronouns if you're comfortable sharing them, and one thing that you would like us to know about you. So in less than 1 minute. So like keep it quick. Oh, thank you for posting that. So just modeling really quickly. Hi, everyone. I'm Ingrid Edstrom, she, her pronouns. I am located in Southern Oregon on the unceded ancestral lands of the Shasta and Takelma peoples. And one thing that I would love for you to know about me is that I live on a 2-acre farm where I grow most of my own food. And I will pass it to Jennifer.
Unmute. There it is. Hello. I am Jennifer Scott. I am in a suburb of Dallas, Texas, although I'm a Northeast Connecticut transplant just outside of New York City. She, her, sorry about that, missed that one. One thing to know about me, I am not an accountant by trade. In fact, you don't want me anywhere near your books. I do own a multi-state consulting firm where we do bookkeeping, payroll, HR, and recruiting, and I am much more on the HR side.
Beautiful. Do you want to pass it? Pick who's next.
Ooh, Alexis.
I am Alexis. My company is Accounting Therapy. We're based out of basically Los Angeles. And she, her pronouns. And one thing about me is I have been supporting QuickBooks longer than I haven't been supporting QuickBooks.
Brilliant. Who would you like to pass it to?
I'll pass it to Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm in Rio de Janeiro, which is the unceded lands of the Chupi people. She, her pronouns, and something interesting. Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't do drugs. Like a lot of people think I do the way I show up, but I don't actually do drugs. I got enough going on here.
Brilliant. Love it. Would you like to pass it?
Oh, yes. So sorry. Gina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jana, and Jana Etienne. I am in Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C. Pronouns she, her, hers. I've been trying to think of something you want to know about me. I am a CPA, but that's my former practice life. Today, I'm a DEI consultant. I promise you don't want me doing anything to do with accounting or tax. Donnie, I hand it to you.
Thanks, Jana. Donnie here with the Center for Accounting Transformation. I am currently in Vegas, but born and raised from Hawaii. And that maybe is the one thing, is that the more I see what's going on in culture and everything, the more I think everyone needs to embrace what we do in Hawaii in terms of the aloha spirit and the culture that we do, because a lot of the problems that I see that I'm hearing, reporting everywhere else that's going on, we don't really have that in Hawaii. And I think it's because of the way that we accept everyone and we've embraced everyone, and everyone has embraced the Hawaiian culture, and the Native Hawaiians are the original people that are the people of Hawaii.
Love that. Thank you. Do you want to pass it on?
Pass to Dan.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Luthi. I am a partner at Nightspot Accounting. I am he, him. We're based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Something unique about me. Utah is very is culturally has a very religious background, and then geology or genealogy is a big aspect of that piece. And I've been learning a whole lot about new people that I'm related to over the last couple of weeks and months, which has been really, really cool. Related to former presidents, as well as some other really cool things from that standpoint. So it's been kind of fun just to dig into that over the last little bit and learn a little bit more about where I come from. So I'll pass it over to Christine.
Hi, my name is Christine Silvis. I work with Naomi and CPA Moms. I am not an accountant either, but I am administrative support. I am she, her. I live in Huntsville, Alabama. But I'm currently in Miami, supporting my husband at an event. So that's fun. One thing about me, my mom is full-blooded Native American Indian. That makes me half. She is part of the Six Nations. And I pass it on to Matthew.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And as a reminder, we are recording. PS, for those of you who are curious or need to be reminded, Matthew Hagum. I am one of the co-founders of the Accounting Alchemy Network. I am broadcasting today from Custer, Washington, which is an area, not even a town, but an area in the Pacific Northwest, north of Seattle by about an hour and 45 minutes on the original lands of the Coast Salish people. My pronouns are he, him. And one fun thing about me is I'm going on a 30+ day road trip starting April 4th. So that's why I was asking you, Alexis, where you live, because I might be coming up on your doorstep. PS. And also we'll be swinging through Vegas on my way back up for another conversation. But anyway, so I'm on the road soon, which I'm super excited about. Back to
I'm
you.
still waiting for the Dallas visit, dude.
I know I have to make my way to Texas. That's a different trip altogether. Turns out. Yeah, I thought I could just drive over to Texas from California. You can't do that. It's not a thing. Well, you can, but it's a much longer road trip. All right, Ingrid, back to you.
Back to me. Well, so this is a conversation. This is a social forum. It's, we are, facilitating, so kind of holding the container, and at the same time, it's a loose container. So we get to talk about whatever is inspiring each of you to talk about around this topic, and just wanting to create the space in which to do that. That said, I think that a good place to maybe start the conversation would be to give you all a little peek behind the curtain at some of what has been being discussed in the monthly calls that Mayumi's been running around creating humane workspaces, because I'm really curious if there's anything that other minds might add to the list, what is liked about it. So I'm kind of inclined to toss it back to you, Matthew, since you've got that list in front of you.
Yeah, totally. I will go ahead and share that. So for those of you who aren't aware, this started back at Appy Camp, and the long and short of it is that we outsourced the question, like, hey, what do you all want to talk about? And the topic that came up was around creating parent-friendly workplaces, to support people who had kids and couldn't stay at the office until 11 p.m. or later, and had to pick up the kids from school and do all the things that it means to have kids. Anyway, so fast forward, after multiple sessions, it's turned into a conversation around humane workplaces and what we can do as a profession to create and advocate for humane workplaces. We did, and I will be brief in this just to give you an overview. We did an exercise where a group of us sort of identified some of the top values that we, or key points that we felt were really reflective of what a humane workplace would be, and then subsequently narrowed that down to a couple of different topics that I think are interesting topics to put on the table for us to discuss. And so I'll sort of share the summary of those fell in the following buckets. One of those was really around creating agreements that are inclusive of a humane workplace, right? So that the actual employment agreement said something about reasonable about time off and taking care of yourself, that it wasn't just sort of a nice thing that we talk about, but that was actually codified in a document that honored the relationship. We talked a lot about the importance of compassion and empathy, and the importance of really cultivating empathy within the organization. We also talked about creating workplaces that find the harmony between the workplace and the individual in their exploration of and personal expression leading towards joy, right? So joy was something really important. We all wanted to feel joyful in our lives, and also find that balance of like, okay, how do I explore my own sense of joy generation, and do that's in consent and in agreement with the organization. It's like, for example, explicitly, it's, yes, it might be joyful for me to just like disappear for a month and go swim, off the coast of Hawaii, but that's not going to help, my team if I don't, get consent around that and create agreements. So what does that look like? And then ultimately that ties into another sort of bucket of things, which is ways of being, right? And so, for example, creating, how do I say this? team members that are coachable, right? So there's a difference between somebody that's coachable, somebody that's not coachable. And so that's a way of being, right? Can you be coachable and receive feedback from your colleagues so that collectively you can move forward as a team, right? So things around ways of being. And then the last sort of bucket of this multifaceted Venn diagram was dynamic or movable workplace places that allowed for the uniqueness of individuals, right? It's sort of this, this fixation on, okay, these are the hours, this is the structure that we use, there's no exceptions to the rules. Well, what do you do when there actually needs to be maybe an exception to the rule? What if somebody has a family emergency or needs different kind of support, or so how do we create businesses that allow for a little bit more agility and flexibility? So those are sort of the recaps. Christine, I know you've been very involved in that. I'd love to hear if there's anything you want to add to that before we open it up to what people are responding to.
No, I think you did a great job recapping that, actually, very thorough. It's been a really great experience in getting everybody's I guess the different environments of everybody's firm, of everybody's personal, whether they have kids or don't have kids, and just what that looks like. I think it just comes from a place of variety, which I think is really great, and it really just starts inspiring other ideas and trying to think about just overall, and then how to implement that. That's been like the I think where we're headed next, right? So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you both. So I guess from there, I would love to maybe hear from Alexis and Donnie and Jana a little bit to start with, since the three of you are the ones who kind of inspired this conversation to come together, and hear your thoughts on kind of what we were just discussing, and then see how we can maybe generate one question: are we missing anything from what's been discussed so far? And then two, how do we figure out how to measure some of these things? Because a lot of these things are very subjective, they're extremely personal. So what key performance indicators can we use to benchmark? Are we on the right track? How do we lean test this? What does that even look like? Do any of you have any thoughts to start us off?
I can start. I'm usually the starter. Honestly, when you were going through that list, Matthew, it made me really happy, because a lot of these things I have implemented in the business, and that is my whole thing and has been my whole thing forever, is I want a family that works together and makes money. And, we have in our agreement and our offer letters, if you will, that, this is what we're offering, and these are the kind of things that you can expect. Like, our number one core value is treat everyone like your favorite aunt. If my aunt needs to go to the doctor, go to the dang doctor. Like, if you whatever you got to do, you got to do it. Family is always first, and they are our family. So, just as you were going through the list, I was like, yes, I got that. I mean, I can always improve. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I think I'm well on my way to accomplishing that goal of having that family that works together, makes money together, and works hard together. So that made me very, very, very happy. The one thing that I'm really curious on is the personal expression towards joy. I hope that we can get into that one, because as much as I want my people to be happy and, enjoy what they're doing and be able to express themselves, I would love to know what other people think that means in a business, because that one piqued my interest. I need more info. So
I'll jump in, and then Donnie, you can quantify all of us. I just came back from the Forum for Workplace Inclusion. I was there for the last 3 days, and there were a lot of themes that came up, and so many things that you mentioned. I wrote down different ways, and you can tell me if I captured all of these, Matthew, But what I captured was an organization that was equitable, inclusive, accommodating, provided for and encouraged authenticity, and was flexible and adaptable. I was trying to boil these down to single words just so I could sort of sync them up with.
I got the first three of those. Could you say the other ones again?
Yeah, equitable, inclusive, accommodating, authentic, flexible. And one of the themes that came up a lot, and we hear a lot of people talking about more and more, is intersectionality and also neurodiversity. And I thought of these because neurodiversity is around the way our brains work. And it's so complex and it's so deep and rich, and how all of our different thinking styles, forget about neurodiversity in terms of conditions, so much as they are just the ways we see, hear, and think about the world, and creating that space where we can all just do that. We can share ideas, and I can express them differently than you, or I can wait, think for a while, and then express them. I don't have to tell you what I think right now in this meeting. And then intersectionality, which is, we are all made up of a lot of different identities. And one of the challenges is that we have to recognize that we can't solve for all of them. But what we can do is appreciate the connectivity and the uniqueness that that brings. So that means I'm half Asian, half Black, a mother, I have a dog, he snores. My kids are grown. I could go on, all the different things that are my identity. And you don't have to have an organization that can address that unique combination. I just need you to see that combination is there. So I don't even know if I was saying anything relevant to anything else that was said, but I just think that the idea that we can have these organizations that allow for this, let's just focus on getting the work done and not how you do it or where you do it or what you're dressed in when you do it or the way you talk about it. Are the outcomes what we've agreed to? And if yes, isn't that what this should all be about?
Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jana.
There's so much to pick up from there. So there's maybe 4 things that I wrote down, and I'm kind of, well, actually, let me do the 5th, which is just working off of what Jana said. So the outcome, is it really just the outcome? And I think one of the things that actually distinguishes what we do in accounting, and especially if you're a licensed CPA, so maybe it's not subject to everyone, but there is an importance to how we do things. And we have standards that we have to follow and things. So there is an importance to some of the how, not necessarily all of it. And there's interpretation between standards versus the actual procedures being followed, right? So I do think outcome is important, but I do think in our field in accounting, we do have to recognize that there are standards and that we cannot do certain things, and that certain things should happen, like supervision, right? So I think we got to balance that a little bit. Going back to the very beginning with Alexis, with family. So it's so interesting that you brought that one up, because there's actually an article. I'm trying to remember if it wasn't Forbes. It's one of those that type of level of publication that had an article, and I just put on my LinkedIn, I think it was last week, where the author was saying work is not your family. And one of the things she said was, because you don't fire grandma. And I was listening to you go, the favorite aunt. I'm like, you don't fire your favorite aunt, but if there's someone that's kind of weird or the black sheep, we kind of do tend to shun them and be like, maybe you don't need to come to the family stuff, or maybe we're not going to invite them, right? It's not exactly the same, but we don't treat all family always inclusive all the time. But I think the feeling of it, which we also use the word ohana, and the article specifically criticized, I think it was Google, because they used ohana and the concept of the aloha spirit, which is actually why I also started off with that in here, that they said you shouldn't put stuff like this into part of corporate culture, because we're not family and not everyone is Pacific Islander. And it's like, no, but it's the principles and it's the values that these things are exhibiting. So I think the concept of kind of family values and the way that we would want to treat each other is really what we're looking for there, rather than actual family. So I'll stop there on that one. The other concept that came up earlier was really to the concept of joy, and I'm actually reading Joy Inc., which is written by the CEO and founder of Menlo Innovations. Menlo Innovations is an IT consulting company. They develop software that their whole part of their whole culture is joy. And I'm actually reading up a bunch of, I already interviewed them for one of my podcasts, because they have a very different way of working. Two people work on every task, and they switch pairs that they work in every week. And they have a very peer-driven evaluation system. So I'm reading the book, and I've done some interviews of them to look at the way that they're handling a lot of people issues, which ties back into culture, and their whole culture is around joy and creating of joy. So the whole book is about that. I'm about halfway through. It's pretty interesting. So I wish I had more that I could kind of bring to that, but that's a great resource on how do you create joy. The CEO talks about it a lot in that book, so I highly recommend that. Janat started bringing in the neurodiversity and personality, and I started translating that also into personality. We all have different ways that we like to work, so I agree with Janat, it doesn't need to be to the point of it's true neurodiversity, which we normally think of as conditions. It's just we all have different personalities. Pick and choose your poison in terms of which personality assessment you use. It'll give you some information there. But it's about recognizing and accepting that we all work in different ways. And then I would tie that back, like in my firm, we have a value of individuality. And when this whole inclusion thing came up, I was like, should we change that to be inclusion? And we kind of went that way, but we flipped it back we actually changed it to say inclusion, just to align with kind of the hype. But the way that we write that out is that we say we recognize the uniqueness of every person, and unless what they're doing actually infringes upon the whole, that we just accept that that's what they do. And I come back to the family, that's what we do. We're like, yeah, cousin so-and-so, they're just a little different, but we accept them because they're part of our family, and what they're doing is not disrupting us, right? They're not hooked on drugs or whatever and disrupting the whole family. And so we still include them in. Like tying that all the way back to the family, I'll kind of end there. That's kind of my thoughts on these.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, each of you. And I feel like we kind of came a little bit full circle with what Donnie was just saying to what Alexis started with, around being able to be in those personal expressions toward joy and what that means. And I think for me, a big part of what that means is simply being able to be our whole selves in our workplaces, not having to hide a piece of ourselves behind a professional veneer that is ultimately dehumanizing and makes us feel a lack of belonging in the workplace. If we're not able to bring our joy to the workplace, we're not going to be able to feel joy in the workplace. So being able to celebrate those elements of ourselves, Matthew's a dancer, and I guess I love the example that you just gave around family, Donnie, around this person, they're a little different, but they're not hooked on drugs. Okay, so what if someone is in recovery? Can we celebrate that with them? Can we offer them support in our workplaces and make it so that that's not something that they have to feel ashamed of and hide from? Can we be supportive and inclusive in that way, and recognizing that those diverse, unique perspectives, pulling a page from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 6 is the habit of synergize. And it's that idea that the whole is so much greater than the sum of the parts, because our differences are seen as assets. And that together, because of our differences, we will come up with unique solutions that no one of us could come up with individually. And that's exactly what we're working to create here in our social forum. So I would love to hear from the perspectives that we haven't gotten to hear from yet. Jennifer, Dan, Nicole, anything that you have to add on what we were popping around?
So I have an interesting,
Go for
ahead.
it.
Okay. An interesting thought on the family piece. we talk about like valued, right? We don't talk about family for very similar reasons to, I believe, the article Donnie was referring to, because I do think it gives a little bit of a different connotation. Family can set up sibling rivalry. Family can set up hierarchy. I don't want to be their mom. I just don't. I've got kids. Thank you. And so we really create a people first organization around like valued mindset. And that's how we approach it here. I love I used to say like-minded, and I was recently introduced to like valued, and I love that so much more. So that's one thing I was thinking of when the family conversation was happening. The other thing that got me thinking a little bit was self-care and personal expression towards joy. To me, is taking care of yourself. If you're taking care of yourself, then you allow the opportunity to feel joy. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're never going to get to that state. And Donnie knows part of this conversation, but we have a back and forth between unlimited PTO and what the catch is to that. And there is a catch, and how to enforce it, because we all know that even if you give people PTO, they don't always take it. And then you've got other people who take advantage of it. So how do you monitor that? I have gone in and put PTO on people's calendars. Like, I will tell them, you can change the date if this date doesn't work for you, but you need to take a day off, like now, soon. Or encourage them to take time off. We do have an unlimited PTO policy, and there is a catch to that. And a lot of people disagree with it. I'm going to ask you, because we're a small team and we're professionals, that you check in a couple times a day. I don't mean that you should be working. I mean that you should check your email on your phone as you're wandering through Disney or before you leave the hotel, and push it back into play in case the client didn't email solutions, but they emailed your inbox. Right? So by law, HR law, if you're going to do that, I'm supposed to pay you for the day anyway, so I do. Right? And then, but we encourage that they're pushing things back into play throughout their time off. That all being said, I was just on vacation, and it's the first time since 2007 that I opened my laptop for 30 minutes for the whole week. Yeah. I finally have a team in place that allows me to do that. And yeah, I was checking email, but I was checking it on my phone. And I opened my laptop once for a grand total of 30 minutes, which was amazing. And it's, I think, because of that like valued mindset. So awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you. Nicole, do you want to jump in next?
Sure. Jennifer, it's funny. I was just speaking with someone about the importance of when we consider differences in asset, where we come together, which is mission and values, and then everything else is fair game. And we want as much, sort of variance in opinion and perspective as possible. But to be honest, I've really been struggling about how we can set up a system that values the differences in assets and sort of minimizes the infringement that may have, to have wildly different opinions and different communication styles and different just ways of moving through the world, especially as we are a remote team and trying to build in support systems so that communication is effective and respectful and happens, and also some of those differing opinions don't sort of fall through the cracks. So that's what I've been working on, but I have no answers right now. It's just something that's been spinning and spinning.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dan, you have anything to add?
Yeah. I actually love the conversation about family and the relationship with that with work. Because I'm reminded every single time of a conversation I had with my older brother when I was 21 years old, when he actually got me a job at the organization he was working at. His statement to me was this. He said, "You are my brother, but I have to take care of my family. So if it doesn't work out, no hard feelings between the two of us, but my family is first." And that stuck with me from the context of I've never worked with someone that I cared more deeply about, but also wanted to make sure that they were satisfied with the work that I did. So when I chose to leave that place, it was emotional for me to share it with him first, because we had a different bond over that. And this was a brother who I mean, truly to this day is my best friend. He's someone who I care deeply about. But I learned a lot in that conversation from a family discussion of family is always going to be there for you, but family doesn't always have to agree and doesn't always have to be on the same page. And so I feel like that's what's carried me in a lot of aspects of the family relationship that we've tried to create here. And it's hard. It's hard to create that environment where people feel like they can be appreciated in who they are, but also to the same extent. And I love the comment that Donnie made about aunts and uncles who may not be around as much. Every organization, no matter what type of, they're living organisms. And so sometimes that living organism expels something that doesn't cohesively work with it. And it doesn't mean that you should always create a safe place for everybody if the organization structure is not built to be that place. And so I think that's part of the thing that we've also have to be aware of is that not that we should create toxic environments, but that the environments that we do create should be conducive for people to learn and grow, but also help people find the place that's going to help them grow more successfully than what they can do in your environment. And so that's something I've been really passionate about and really encouraging, at least with people who have left our organization this year and in last year, is like, I'm eager for where they're going. I'm eager for what's happening in their life, because I hope that they can find what they didn't find here in that space. And I'm not mad about it. I'm happy for them in that adventure. But I think it's something that we have to make a conscious effort to do those kind of things, because if not, it does come across at times as negative and destructive. But I think also to the same piece too, it's the human aspect of what we do. We have to acknowledge that part of what our roles are. Like, people are humans, which means humans make mistakes, which means humans need time, and sometimes they can't recognize for themselves that they need time. And so I loved that comment from Jennifer of, no, you're going to take time off because you need it, whether you like it or not. It helps people to re-energize and become refocused when you create those opportunities for people. And I love that. I love the comments that people have made so far up to this point in that.
Beautiful. Thank you. We've got hands up. I love it. Donnie, take it away. You're muted.
I like Dan's concept of the helping people find a place to grow. And one of the very early things that I remember from my firm is when our team had started growing, one of the things I did with everyone was a personal mission statement exercise. And really helping them figure out what is their personal, and they said, well, is this personal or is this work? And I was like, no, this is personal. This is your personal mission statement. Like, why are you here? What are you trying to accomplish? And after we went through that exercise, one of the women that was working with me, she ended up coming back to me maybe a month later, and she goes, I'm sorry, I have to tell you I'm resigning because I found another job. And we were like, oh no, what happened? Is it something we wish you could talk to us about? And she goes, no, the exercise really made me realize my passion is in education. And she's an IT person. And so she was like, so, as much as I enjoy the work here and I love everyone, the exercise made me realize it doesn't do that. So she actually went and worked for our public school system in Hawaii. And I said, that's great. Like, I'm glad we helped you figure that out. And, that we actually she shared, she said, I really feel like I honed more of my skills, but this is where I want to be. And we were like, that's great. And we didn't see that as a loss per se, right? So much as, I don't know, like graduation, or I don't know what you want to think of it, but it's helping her get that realignment. And so that's something that I think we need to also recognize. And I think Dan kind of said some of that too, where we might not be the right organization for these people. And if we can help them realize that and find their place or find their right direction, that's so important. That's such an important contribution that we can provide to them.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Jana.
Sorry, I'm over here with I think I might have popped my contact lens out. So two things came up, Dan, when you were talking, and then Donnie, you reminded me. My mother was my office manager when I was in practice. And when she first started there, we were torn. Should I call you Terry? Should I call you Mom? Like, what do we do? And this notion that to be professional, we had to speak to each other differently. And then, tongue in cheek, I said, you know what? I'm calling you Mom, my office manager. Ha! 2 birds, 1 stone. And then what was interesting though is, and the idea was, well, we can't let people know you're my mother, da, da, da. As it turns out, not only did people appreciate it, but they called her Mom too. Everybody started calling her Mom. And it sort of set this atmosphere, that family idea. And I mean, it was a tax practice. So the work that we did was very personal. Taxes are nothing if not intimate, with your clients. And so it really helped create that environment. So that idea of family really, really resonated with me. And then the other thought I had was what you just said, Donnie. I had conversations with my employees that I'm under no illusion that my firm is your last job. So what we really need to think about is, where are you aspiring to go into your career? What are the skills that you think you're going to need? And then how can I give you those skills? How can I help you with that? Because your success is my success. As a leader, I'm successful when my people grow. I'm successful when my people blossom into other things, even if it means, to your point, Donnie, they don't work for me anymore. If they go off and find a job that really speaks to them and have a career that's really fulfilling, and I had something to do with that, that tells me that I've done what's important to me and what I value. And that is to really put, who said it first? Somebody said, a people first organization. Well, that's what putting people first is.
Brilliant. Thank you. Jennifer.
I just want to be super transparent in that I employ 4 people in my family. So my sister, my nephew, my niece, and my husband.
Okay?
Like
literal nepotism.
Yeah, literal. Like I just want to be crystal clear. Like, we had to make it a very clear definition of, like, when we're working, it's kind of very much what Dan and his brother had to deal with, right? Like, I'm not going to make my nephew discipline my sister. It's his mother-in-law. Like, that would be weird. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to discipline my sister, even though she's my bigger sister, she's my big sister. It's like, in here, you're an accounting manager and I'm the CEO. So let's deal with that. And it's not personal about us being family. When you're in the business, you've got to kind of deal with that, right? But I wanted to clarify, because it's not like we're not family.
Yeah.
In very much ways we are.
Thank you. I want to hear what Dan has to say, and then I want to touch back on that with some ideas that that have been percolating through what all of you are saying. So Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to make the comment to that too, is, you can choose which family you work with. Like, that's the part. Like, my brother and I have had this conversation several times, and he's like, I couldn't work with our other brother. We just don't have the same mind rhythm. Like, it would be frustrating for both of us. I couldn't work with Dad because we have different mind rhythms and how things go through it. But I think the exact same thing goes on with how your organization is structured. You have to be mindful of the intangibles that people bring. It's part of the reason why, like, we as an organization spent a really long time last year, I mean, almost the entire year, building out our 3 core values to make sure that they meshed clearly with who we were and what our intent was. And we communicate that when we do our recruiting. Like, that is, like, when anybody, we ask that question, what are your, what's the culture? It's these 3 core values. Nothing else materially is structured outside of that when it comes to our culture. And it really matters to us that people follow that and they believe in those pieces. But I can't work with my dad. I love him to death, but we're too much alike and we butt heads, and that's not okay when it comes to this kind of thing. And I think the same thing comes with coworkers. Is sometimes you find that there are certain pieces with people that just don't work from a meshing standpoint, and it gives them an opportunity and gives you an opportunity to help them find some other place that they can be successful with too. So I think it's really crucial that, like, we understand holistically. And I love the concept that it was just made of this: I'm not the last place you're going to work before you retire. But if we get a good year, that's a great step. 6 months, please no, because it's too hard to work through that process. But a year, like, I'll take a year. A year is a great place for both of us to be able to get some traction and movement in where we need to go.
Beautiful. Thank you. I want to bring this back around to where we started, because the first thing that Matthew mentioned from the list that we've been developing with Mayumi and Christine was around creating agreements. And just like you were saying just now, Dan, around getting your 3 core values out there, that's part of the agreements of the company. And I think creating agreements is really essential because it sets us up in a consent conversation, that we have to be in consensual relationship with the other people around us, with the workplaces, with the agreements, with the constructs around us. And that is a big part that is missing from what we feel in the deeps of our souls as, oh, that's a toxic workplace. It's because consent is being thrown out the frickin' window. And recognizing that consent cannot exist effectively in a power dynamic. I'm going to say that again: consent cannot exist effectively in a power dynamic. And that the current way that our society has been shepherding forth certain cultural dynamics of patriarchy, institutionalized racism, colonialism, are all based upon dynamics of having power over someone or something, that creates these power dynamics of push-pull. When we were talking about sibling rivalry, there's a power dynamic there. That those challenging emotions come up and people feel rankled and constricted when we're not in consent with ourselves first, and then also with each other, and we're not having effective communication around those things. And it may be that we're not a fit to work together because we're rowing the boat in 2 different directions, and that's just not going to work. But how do we talk about it? And how do we set up KPIs that can measure it? So with that question, I would love to hear what Jana has to say. And then I also want to hear what Alexis has to say. And then I really want to also hear what Donnie has to say, because Donnie is kind of like, when it comes to KPIs, Donnie, your brain. Oh, Jana, you lowered your hand. Why did you lower your hand?
Oh, because I unmuted myself.
Okay,
Sorry.
good. I wanted to make sure that you didn't decide not to say what you were going to say, because I want you to say whatever it is.
So I put in the comments, and it invites alignment. And what I was thinking, Dan, when you were talking about your values, when you get really clear on your values, they're on your website. You don't have to say them. They show up through the way you act, talk, behave, think, do. But I also think that they then inform your process. So for example, when you're recruiting, people who are attracted to those values will lean in. As you go through the interview process, and just the way that you're showing up and talking about the firm and connecting with others, you, the candidate, might realize this might not be the right place for me. So one of the things that helps is you don't have to sit there and figure out if this is the right person. If you show and provide information about what are our benefits, what is our policy, how do we work here, what is our culture, what are the expectations, you can naturally attract the people who sync from a mindset and a belief perspective. And this can, although won't necessarily address some of the challenges around when we talk about diversity and recruiting and creating more diverse workplaces, when we can connect on heart and not worry about connecting on check, 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 check. This person appears to be, and then fill in the blank on whatever the perception is you're looking for. That allows for a type of alignment that transcends all that other stuff. And then the people who do come into your organization and stay, and as a result, the client stickiness that you develop, all of that can just really be stronger.
Beautiful. Thank you. Alexis.
So, of course, Janad just took most of the words out of my mouth. But one thing, so first, I want to give Dan super props to getting his core values down to 3. We couldn't get down any lower than 7. So amazing job there. But we actually put our core values and our mission in our job postings so they can see right there who we are, you know, what we represent, what we want for them as much as what we want for ourselves when they're, you know, joining the team, if you will. So that I have found, so we started that probably in the end of 2020, and we have hired 3 people since, and they have been like, I know I'm going to use a family thing, but they're like siblings. They're like best friends. They're amazing humans. Like if these women were not scattered across the United States, they would be at my house having a barbecue every Sunday. Like I just love them to pieces. They just fit so well. And I really believe that putting out that, not just I want this person for this job, but who we are and what the person is that we're looking for makes all the difference in the world for us. But on power dynamics, one thing I wanted to kind of throw out there is we don't use power dynamics in our company at all. Like Nicole put a post up about, you know, well, how is that not possible with money? Money isn't a thing for like, it's not a thing. That's kind of a stupid statement, but money doesn't kind of get brought into anything. So I don't process payroll. The payroll person processes payroll. So it's kind of a disconnect in my organization, at least, that isn't anything that we don't discuss it. It's not like how profitable are you or how profitable is your client or any of that. That discussion isn't really there. But in terms of power dynamics, the team is all one. I go to the bookkeeping meetings when they need me. I will, you know, be part of onboarding a new team member. Like I want everybody to be a part of everybody's world. I know we're only a 9-man team right now, and that's still possible right now. And I want to keep it like that as long as I can, that everybody is a part of everybody else's world. Everybody has a say in what happens. We do quarterly anonymous forms where it's like, what can we do better? What text do you hate? Like, what have we done to make your life difficult? What have we done to make your life better? So we want everybody to know that their thoughts, their opinions, their ideas, they 100% matter. And we've made some huge changes in our business based on, you know, what some of our team has suggested, and they've worked tremendously well. So I'm a firm believer. I was an athlete, so I'm a firm believer of team. There is no manager. We do not use the word manager in our team. I personally think that creates that superiority thing, which I don't want. I want us all to be equal. Me being the CEO or my brand new green bookkeeping team member, you know, everybody kind of has a say and is part of the whole. So that's what I want to throw out there.
Beautiful. I want to acknowledge that we've got about 6 minutes and we want to respect everyone's time. So before I toss it Donnie's way, I want to just bring awareness to the chat so that people who are watching the replay can benefit from the discussion. Because Nicole, you asked an amazing question in the chat. How do you get rid of power dynamics when one person pays another? I know it can be mitigated by giving them options to leave, not the last place they'll work, but I struggle to conceptualize its absence. And Matthew says, that's a great question. How does money and compensation play a role in the creation of power dynamics? And what I said in response to that is that pay is just one example of energy exchange in that relationship. And I think the deeper question is, how do we heal our relationship with money so that it doesn't feel like a control mechanism? How do we make that relationship with our team member healthily interdependent instead of codependent? So there's some deep inner work to do there on our own personal money story. And coming up in May, we get to have that conversation right there with frickin' Barry Tesler, which is going to rock. The author of The Art of Money is coming on for a Lyceum. So please join us for that conversation too. And with that, Donnie, I would love to hear your nerdy, delicious brain talk about KPIs around this stuff.
One quick comment on the power thing. That hierarchy and that power is not bad unless it's abused. And you actually heard Jennifer even giving a good example of where she used that power to right a situation, to ensure that a situation is getting righted in a conflict between family members. So I don't think we want to throw power out. I think we just want to make sure it's not abused.
Yeah, that's you just totally illustrated the difference between power over versus power with, so that we are empowering each other together. We have the power to do amazing things. We're not throwing power out. Power itself is not bad. It's only power over that is toxic.
And to build off of kind of what Alexa said, because I think part of my reaction on a lot of this is like, oh, this sounds really good for small firms, but does it work for bigger firms? Like Dan's firm's a mid-sized firm. They're working through a lot of this, and Dan and I had some conversations around it. And for example, one of our values at my firm is that we trust people who we are empowering to make certain decisions, to make decisions on somebody else's behalf. So that's part of the way where, as you get bigger, Alexis, it's not so much of everyone's involved, so much as these are the people that should have input and they're good. Everyone can provide input, but these are the people that are going to help work through something and make a decision, and not everyone necessarily has to vote on it, type of a thing, because that will end up being able to scale. And Ingrid, thank you for letting me kind of wrap up in here. The whole time I was thinking, we're not getting to the KPIs. We're not getting to KPIs. And you actually, I think, brought up the word earlier, which I did want to bring up in this, which is belonging. And so the whole concept of belonging is something that, especially for the center, that we've started really focusing on. And in the end, it's how do I measure belonging? So when you start to look at the research, including the academic research that's going on, in fact, Amy Cooper from University of Alaska is actually doing her PhD. She should be publishing and defending her dissertation. Either she already did or it's coming up next month, on how do we measure belonging in firms. So I don't have the full answer there, but Amy will have the answer for us, at least the start of an answer for that, because that's what her survey was about. It was looking at, what is someone planning to stay? If they're not planning to stay, why? If they're planning to stay, what are the things that are kind of keeping them there? And it's all around this concept of how can I tell when someone feels like they belong at a firm? Because she's trying to predict turnover, and will also be able to use what she's doing to see, will someone feel like they belong when they come in? So I think we've got probably another conversation to have around that. Maybe we can pull Amy in when we tackle that one.
Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, I just put in the chat, I want an introduction to Amy Cooper. We need to get her on a Lyceum, because that sounds absolutely amazing. So with that, we have just a minute left. I would love to hear just a brief one-word top takeaway or action item or final thought from everyone. And Matthew, you've been so quiet. I would love to start with you.
Okay, happy to. Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I'm just excited to take some of this back to some of the circumstances I'm discovering in some of my client work around organizational transformation. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I can say about that, but there's amazing content and inspiration in this room. So thank you all for sharing. Back to you, Ingrid.
Do you want to pass it?
Yeah, sure.
Passing it to me?
I will. No, I'm not going to pass it to you, because I'm going to pass it to Jana. Jana, passing to you.
What am I saying?
Just a final, like, one word takeaway or aha moment or action item.
I think all of it was great. I guess nothing jumps out at me other than family. That's the word that kept coming up. And family is relationship, family is feeling, family is connection. There's no single definition of it, but it's a concept that's really meaningful in organizations.
Thank you. And recognizing the time, let's try to keep it to just one word without a lot of explanation. Do you want to pass it?
Jennifer.
Joy.
Thank you. Pass it.
Donnie.
Like-minded.
Beautiful.
Alexis.
I have a sentence. Oh, I'm just happy that everybody else is on board with this.
Yay. Pass it.
Christine.
My word is wow, just because of all like-mindedness and I just the energy. So I'm excited. This is great. Donnie?
Oh, Johnny already went. So let's do Nicole.
One word, too difficult, but I like highlighted, starred, underlined, your success is my success.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I think mine is belonging. I think that is just hitting the top of my list. Thank you all so much, and stay tuned for other amazing upcoming conversations, including the Game Changer Intensive, which the registration deadline is coming up this Sunday, April 2nd. So sign up for that. We'll see you all soon. Mwah. Bye.